USA History Lesson Number 2, Early America. The Colonial Period. The early 1600s saw the beginning of a great tide of emigration from Europe to North America. Emigration from England often was not directly sponsored by the government, but by private groups of individuals whose chief motive was profit. The first English colony was founded at Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. Early settlements developed in New England in the Middle Colonies and the Southern Colonies. In 1620, the Pilgrims arrived on the Mayflower and founded Plymouth Colony in Massachusetts. This is a picture of the Mayflower ship. In 1681, William Penn, a wealthy Quaker, received a large tract of land which became known as Pennsylvania. To help populate it, Penn actively recruited immigrants, among them many religious dissenters, that is, Quakers, Mennonites, Amish, Moravians, and Baptists. The first German community was established in Pennsylvania in 1683. By 1733, 13 English colonies had been established along the Atlantic coast. This is a picture of William Penn. Questions for Slide 1. Where was the first English colony founded in America? Where was the first English colony founded in America? When did that happen? The first English colony was founded in Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. The first English colony was founded in Jamestown, Virginia in 1607. What is the name of the ship that brought Pilgrims to the Plymouth Colony in Massachusetts? A ship named the Mayflower brought Pilgrims to the Plymouth Colony in Massachusetts. A ship named the Mayflower brought Pilgrims to the Plymouth Colony in Massachusetts. What is the name of the USA state that Quaker William Penn settled in 1681 for those seeking religious freedom? Pennsylvania is the name of the state established by William Penn for those seeking religious freedom. Pennsylvania is the name of the state established by William Penn for those seeking religious freedom. The Colonial Period, page 2. Most emigrants left their homelands to escape political oppression, to seek freedom to practice their religion, or for adventure and opportunities denied them at home. Most settlers were English, but there also were Dutch, Swedes, and Germans, a few French Huguenots, and a scattering of Spaniards, Italians, and Portuguese. Few colonists could finance the cost of passage, and in some cases they became indentured servants, agreeing to work as contract laborers for a limited time. In other cases, the expenses of transportation and maintenance were paid by colonizing agencies. The first African slaves were brought to Virginia in 1619. Initially, many were regarded as indentured servants who could earn their freedoms. By the 1660s, however, Africans were brought to America in shackles for a lifetime of indentured servitude, or slavery. Questions. From what country did most colonial immigrants to America come? From what country did most colonial immigrants from America come? Most colonial immigrants to America came from England. How did some immigrants finance their passage to colonial America? Some immigrants financed their passage to America by becoming indentured servants to pay for their travel. Some immigrants financed their passage to America by becoming indentured servants to pay for their travel. From what continent did colonial Americans bring slaves? From what continent did colonial Americans bring slaves? Colonial Americans brought slaves from the continent of Africa. Colonial period, slide 3. The economic and social structures in New England and the Middle Colonies differed from those of the Southern settlements. New England has generally thin, stony soil and long winters, making it difficult to make a living from farming. Turning to other pursuits, the New Englanders harnessed water power and established grain mills and sawmills. With the bulk of the early settlers living in villages and towns across the harbors, many New Englanders carried on some kind of trade or business. The sea became a source of great wealth. Here are some of the New England colonies: Massachusetts, the yellow, New Hampshire, the green, Connecticut, the orange, and very small Rhode Island, the blue. This picture is an example of a watered power grain mill. This picture shows New England settlers making a living from the sea. Questions. Please name as many as you can of the 4 New England colonies in America. Please name as many as you can of the 4 New England colonies in America. Here is a picture of the New England colonies. Could you name them all? Colonial period, slide 4, the Middle Colonies. Society in the Middle Colonies was more varied and cosmopolitan than in New England. By the end of the 18th century, 30,000 people lived in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, representing many languages, creeds, and trades. Though the Quakers, from Germany, lived in Philadelphia, elsewhere in Pennsylvania, others were well represented. Germans became the colony's most skillful farmers. Important, too, were cottage industries such as weaving, shoemaking, cabinet making, and other crafts. The Scots and Irish tended to settle in the back country where they cleared land and lived by hunting and subsistence farming. Here is a picture of the Middle Colonies: New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Questions. Please name as many as you can of the 4 Middle Colonies in America. The Middle Colonies are New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Delaware. Colonial period, slide 4. The Southern Colonies were predominantly rural. In Virginia and Maryland, the planters, supported by slave labor, held most of the political power and the best land. At the same time, yeoman farmers, who worked smaller tracts of land, sat in popular assemblies and found their way into political office. Charleston, South Carolina, became the leading port and trading center of the South, whereas Virginia was bound to a single crop, tobacco. North Carolina and South Carolina also exported rice and indigo. Here is a picture of the Southern Colonies: Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. This is a picture today of the marketplace in Charleston, South Carolina. You can visit that building on your trip to South Carolina. This is a picture of the indigo plant whose flowers were used to make a dye to color cotton. This picture shows workers at a rice plantation in North or South Carolina. Questions. Please name as many as you can of the 5 Southern colonies. Here are the Southern colonies: Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Colonial period, slide 5. By the early 18th century, colonial legislatures held 2 significant powers: the right to vote on taxes and expenditures, and the right to initiate legislation rather than merely act on proposals of the governor. The legislatures used these rights to check the power of English royal governors and to pass other measures to expand their power and influence. In time, the center of colonial administration shifted from London to the provincial capitals. This picture is a picture of collecting taxes in colonial America. The second picture is a picture of the Virginia State House in the Virginia capital city of Richmond. And here is a list of the 13 colonies that comprise the original United States. Can you name which ones belong to New England, the Middle Colonies, and the Southern Colonies? Questions. What is the capital of the state of Virginia? The city of Richmond is the capital of the state of Virginia. Congratulations! You've reached the end of Lesson 2, the 13 United States colonies.